So, what do you do when you are caring for someone with Alzheimer's or other form of dementia, and there are different expressions or behaviors in your loved one that you're not accustomed to, or you're not quite sure what they're trying to tell you? Oh my goodness, this is one of the biggest concerns around. What do you do? Oh, and we've got to cover it today. You're going to love this one. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Experts Dig In with Doggies for Dementia. We're excited to have you today
Mhm.
for, oh my gosh, a really fun episode. Today we have Krista Montague, who, oh my gosh, has done some amazing things in the dementia world. She's a former activity therapist and is a certified dementia practitioner. And I'll tell you a little bit about Doggies for Dementia first, and then we're going to talk to Krista because we're going to dive right in. I'm excited. I really am. Doggies for Dementia is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are funded by donations and sponsorships, and just most recently with a wonderful grant from Alzheimer's Foundation of America. Yeah. So what do we really do, right? And you know what we do is we gift photography sessions to families impacted by dementia, which seems like a luxury, where it really just becomes a really priceless gift for them. And we work together to raise awareness, to teach the world about dementia. We really believe that the more we know about something as a culture, that the better that we can do to support one another. And we have a long way to go with dementia. And that's not the perfect lead in, Krista, because that is so much of what you're about too. Yes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. I want to, before we dive into what you're doing right now, because we're going to for sure, I want to hear about your experience as an activity therapist and from what made you want to do that, and then that transition into now.
Yeah. So I was working at a geriatric psych hospital, and essentially what we would see is about like 85% dementia and older adults that have other mental illnesses as well. They'd come to our hospital because of really, really extreme, challenging behaviors. So they're striking out. They are screaming 24/7. It's like we'd see the worst of the worst. Like we're the end of the line for a lot of these
Yes.
places.
Yeah.
So I witnessed a lot in that regard. And what my job as an activity therapist was to find my patient's true baseline. So what that meant was uh, I worked with them, and it was my job to find as many natural non-medication solutions to uh, get them calm, to help manage some of those behaviors. And I guess, spoiler alert, a lot of the behaviors are a lack of training on
Uh-huh.
staff versus
Yeah.
the actual patient themselves. So a lot of times what I find is, really, if you knew how to communicate and you knew how to engage with them and meet their emotional needs, like 90% of the behaviors would go away.
Yeah.
Like
Okay. Wait. Hold
not
on.
permanently, obviously, but like
Yeah.
in the moment.
Yeah, say that again, because
Yeah.
the behaviors or the responses really to what's happening is one of the most scary parts for families caring for someone, or for even visitors, people who are thinking about visiting, and they have this in their mind of what it could be, and it frightens them. And I want you to repeat what you just said.
Yeah. So a lot of the behaviors are folks responding to us. And it's not that anybody is doing anything horribly wrong per se. It's more just most people don't know how to communicate with folks that have dementia, and most people don't know how uh, to meet their emotional needs.
Mhm.
So really what dementia does is it doesn't take away our need to be valued, our need to be listened to contribute, all these things, that all these emotional needs we have as adults, like all those needs don't go away. all dementia does is take away our ability to meet those needs for ourselves. So the real
Right.
power of activities, which is why they had a whole department for it, was that if you knew how to engage them and weave into the activity you happen to be doing that emotional need, you would find that like most all of the challenging behaviors you would see could be prevented or calmed very quickly. So
Uh-huh.
there's a huge power in that. So our role was very important because I'm sure, as a lot of our caregivers know, in the medical system, it's very easy for folks to be over medicated. And I was very lucky to work at a hospital that really had a more holistic uh,
Yeah.
value set. So,
Yes.
what was really neat is we would go into a meeting with the doctor and social worker and all those folks, and I would give them a report of what I thought their true baseline was, which
Hmm.
was, once you have thrown everything but the kitchen sink at them to get
Uh-huh.
them calm, where do you think they were at? And
Uh-huh.
then the doctor would make a decision on how much medication would be required. So it was a way to make sure that our folks weren't being over medicated. They were just
Yeah.
given just the amount they needed in order to, uh, keep their cool long enough to either go back home or go back to long-term care. So I'd say that was that was my job, is to get them back
Yeah.
to baseline.
Yeah. So a really key point you said was that we all have the need to be heard and to
Yeah.
be acknowledged, and that doesn't end when someone has dementia.
No.
Along the stages, even toward the later stages, and
Yeah.
the difference is they may not be able to express it in such a way that we can understand what they're trying to tell us.
Oh,
Right?
a
Yeah,
hundred
they
percent.
they can't express themselves. And I think I had a guest on who called these expressions. Even she didn't like the word behaviors, which I can
Mm,
understand.
yeah,
And she said, we
definitely.
call these expressions. They're expressing something. What are they trying to tell us? And
Yeah, that's
instead of
definitely super, super accurate. I love that
Mhm,
too. The only reason I
mhm,
use challenging behaviors is A, that's what they call it in the medical community, and that's where I came
yeah,
from. And B, oftentimes if you want to communicate to an audience of caregivers, that's what they're observing.
yes,
It takes a little bit of, a little bit
yeah,
down the road to
in
be like,
time, all in
to,
time.
yeah, because what you're
Yeah.
seeing is my loved one is yelling at me. Like that's what you're
Oh,
seeing. That's a
yeah,
behavior to
yeah,
you as the outsider. But on
sure.
the inside, for the person that's with dementia, for them, it's communication. They're trying
Yeah.
to tell you, like, I'm grieving that I can't do what I used to be able to do.
Mhm.
I'm mad that I can't do the job that I think I should be doing. Upset that uh that I used to be needed and now I don't do anything anymore.
Mhm.
Like they
Yeah,
could be trying to communicate all these things through
yeah.
yelling.
Right. Or I'm a burden. I just all of the
Yeah.
above. Yeah, and it's crisis mode for those of us in the midst
Yeah,
of it,
of
trying to
course.
figure it out. I want to talk a little bit about, so you were doing this work too during the time of COVID, during the lockdown times. Is that correct?
Yes. I
Yeah.
worked through almost like all of 2020 and like I'd say half of 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as a retired nurse practitioner, this is a terrible thing to say, honestly, but I was glad that I had left like 6 years prior and missed this crisis time and just how the fatigue and what it was like from all different directions. I mean, we've spoken with families quite a bit here. I just wanted a little bit from a provider who was in the mix at the time, what that was like.
Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons why I started my work online was because of COVID-19. So before COVID-19, the my patients' families were able to come visit like multiple times a day. And that was a huge help. And really what I got a lot of joy out of was teaching and showing the families that would come to the hospital things they could do to keep their loved one at baseline or to keep their loved one calm.
Yeah.
uh to That was one of the real joys of my job. And then overnight it got snatched away and
And
we were
and
pretty much
isn't
all
that
they had.
Yeah, and isn't that too what they needed the most? It wasn't their loved one hospitalized, it was help us to be
Yes.
successful at this. What do we need to know? Right?
Oh,
What do we need to know? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that was like the best parts of my job, and it was a joy to see that transformation of their loved one who was yelling and screaming to them enjoying things like being able to do things with their
Right.
family members or with us, and then being able to see their loved one really come alive again. It was easily the best part of my job. So
Yeah.
when COVID-19 hit, obviously that went away. And there was a lot of grief on my patient's part, because I think something a lot of people don't realize is uh, in Jerry Psych, a lot, what ends up happening is would call these patients boomerangs, where they would uh, inevitably, like, they would get treatment from us, they would go back to long-term care, and they'd come right back to us and go back and come back. So I'd see the
Mhm.
same people like over and over again over a
Yeah.
period of years. So a lot of the patients that ended up getting stuck with us
Yeah.
for a while, when the first outbreak came about, uh, I mean, I knew most of them, or I'd known most of them for years,
Uh,
and uh, it was definitely very emotionally hard. So I started looking into the caregiver community as a way to answer my own questions, to figure out how can I best support my patients that are stuck
yeah.
here in the hospital, that type of stuff. And I noticed in the Facebook groups that the same questions kept on popping up over and over and over again. And to me, it felt obvious, but I mean, I
Uh-huh.
had been around
Hmm.
thousands of dementia patients at that point. So
Yes.
what seemed obvious to me obviously would be difficult and hard for someone who's experiencing it for the very first time.
Yeah.
So I started uh, making YouTube videos, and I created my own Facebook group in order to kind of mass answer the questions. And from there, found I could have a much bigger impact on
Mhm.
people. And of course, working through COVID, it became emotionally very, very hard. You watched your patients suffer with the disease, with COVID-19. It's like my 45-year-old boss, who was like a father figure to me, who was the head of our activities department, ended up dying a month later from COVID. So we're all having to deal with
Wow.
that. And my story is not all that unique. And as far as healthcare workers go, if anything, when I think of the ICU nurses and people like that, like their trauma is like, I mean, not that you should compare traumas, but I mean,
Right.
there's different levels of intensity. I
Yeah.
would say. So eventually, when I saw there was a clear need out there for families, and that it was possible to have a bigger impact on the internet
Yeah.
versus what I could do at the hospital, kind of one patient at a time or one family at a time. That's when I decided I really wanted to pursue teaching caregivers the communication skills and the activities that would help them maybe not have to put their loved one in long-term care so soon and spend thousands upon thousands of dollars
Right.
for that, or if their goal was to keep their loved one at home until their loved one's dying breath, then give them a fighting chance to do that, or just make things easier for them, because there's a lot of medical advice out there, or a lot of like general advice. But the funny thing is I went through training when I went through my job. But the funny thing is once I got in, my coworkers were just like, okay, this is what they say in training, but this is what you really do based off of our experience. So that's what I wanted to give to everybody out online, is like, okay, but
uh,
this is what you really do
Give me
based
some
off of,
examples, Krista. So, yeah,
yeah,
so topics. Let's talk about a few of the topics. I love this so much. From my days in the clinic, we didn't have a team so much. It was the providers, and, as a nurse practitioner, more of the social work type things and the education part. It just wasn't enough. I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying. And I wasn't I mean, we just like, 20, 30-minute visits, right?
yeah.
And so I would love to hear, like, what are some of the top topics that you talk about? So you're on Facebook and Instagram and
And
beyond,
YouTube, I
and
know, yeah.
YouTube. Yeah. Yeah, everywhere to
A
meet the
lot of them,
people, because the
yeah.
bigger impact is both in volume, what you're able to present, and also the number of people, right? So,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So
Definitely.
top
Yeah,
things that you find yourself
saying over and
answering.
over again. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
So the first one I would say that everybody thinks is unique to their loved one, but could honestly be a universal dementia thing, is the phrase "I want to go home." That I get asked that so many times, and that's by far like one of my most successful YouTube videos.
Uh,
And the reason being is it sounds like on face value, you try to tell them, like, they could be saying that in the house they've lived in for 30 years. They could
Mhm.
be saying that, in the long-term care place they just moved into. They could say this virtually anywhere. Uh, so a lot of caregivers, what they'll do is they'll be like, okay, well, I'll drive them around the block to take them home. Or they'll say, like, this is your home or something like that. And
Mhm.
this is all working under the assumption that I want to go home means a physical place. But
Yeah.
that's not actually what folks with dementia mean. And I only really got that after hearing like a couple hundred dementia patients say,
Yeah.
I want to go home. Uh, I think for whatever reason, one day I asked them, is there something at home that you need? And one of them's just like, I think they like one of them said, like, I'm really tired. Like, I just need to get to my bed. And it's like, oh, you don't
Wow.
actually mean like, so what I started to really get, like the aha moment was, I want to go home as a catch-all for I feel uncomfortable here in this present place. I feel
Mhm.
uncomfortable here. I want to get to a place where I know who's around me and that I know I can meet my needs because I can recognize things. Like
Uh-huh.
that's really what they're saying when they say I want to go home. So it could be that they're in pain, that they're hungry, tired, thirsty. They don't know how
Yeah.
else to say that. They just know that food, water, bed, whatever is at their house. So that's where they want to go
Sure.
to.
Sure.
Uh, or it could be an emotional need, like a lot at a lot of nursing homes, just due to budget constraints, they'll have folks just sit, in front of the TV for hours a day, just because hiring out somebody to come and do activities is expensive. So that's what they'll do. And there's a loss of identity and purpose and all kinds of stuff. So them demanding to go home uh, could really be a part of that. I mean, obviously, there's orientation confusion where they don't know what time and place they're in. Like they're actually 90, but they believe they're, in their 30s and they have two small children
Right.
at home. Um,
Yes.
all that type of stuff. So the best way I found to really overcome that is to ask them, what's at home that you need, or is there someone at home waiting for you? Something like that to really get some information. And from there, it's easier to come up with an excuse that would make sense to them as
Yeah.
to why you can't go home yet.
Yeah, I have a story about that. As I did house calls as part of my work too in geriatric psychiatry actually. And so I
Nice.
would go into communities and sometimes we'd get like this urgent call or they call me and myself. I'm like, Carmen, you've got to come by now. We've got a problem. And this is one of those calls this day. And it happened to be not far from where I lived. And like I stopped by on my way home and I get there, and what happened was they were short staffed that day, and the TV they were watching a movie, and then it had just gone into like whatever the TV had been playing on Animal Planet. And it was Day of the Snakes or something like that. Yeah, it was like all about snakes, which was creeping me out as I walked in. I'm like, "What?" And and I'm looking, and people are, very upset sitting there, are like, like they were stuck there but couldn't leave. And um, the thing about like, I want to go home, I want to go home. And I thought, I like, all right, have you noticed what's on the TV? And they're like, oh my gosh, we've just been so busy today with people being this upset. And I'm like, sometimes it is the most obvious things that are happening that we're just missing.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only one with the fear of snakes. And I'm sitting there like just freaking out about it. That was the problem. Was we turned off the TV, distracted, did other things. It was just like it takes a while. We know this. Sometimes it takes a while for that adrenaline rush in the body to even 24 hours or more for things to settle back down. But once it did, it was like, oh my gosh, it was the snakes on the TV.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And
It's
I wish they were all so simple, but it,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
sometimes it takes a little bit of digging. Like a really great story about I want to go home in particular is one of my group moderators. She said that her mom was constantly asking that, and she asked her mom, what's at home that you need? And it took a little bit of digging, like I'd say a day or two of trying to figure it out. Where she said initially her mom said she needs her slippers, and I think from there, I guess, in them trying to like take off her sock or something to put on her slippers, they noticed her toenails had like grown completely into her foot. So they're just like she was trying to, in her mind, I guess slippers meant her feet felt more comfortable. So it was just an attempt to try to say like, hey, my feet are hurting.
Yes.
So then once they cut, trimmed her toenails and relieved the pressure off of her toes, uh, she said from then on, in a way, like before, she'd say, "I want to go home" in a little bit of a panicked voice.
Uh-huh.
And from then on, she would say it in a more like calm voice, as if she'd be like, "Okay, if I say this, then my need will get met."
Mhm.
So it was really a huge game changer for her to
Yeah.
get that insight. So yeah, that's the
Yeah.
number one thing. I'd say number
Yeah.
two is sundowning. That's definitely a huge one,
Mhm.
where they're the symptoms will increase as the day goes on. Uh, and activities are huge for this as well. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but to me, sundowning is like a restless energy.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of I gotta go, I gotta
Mhm.
move, like that
Mhm.
type of and like that restless energy kind of turns into agitation the longer and longer it
So
gets
when the
ignored.
exit
So
seeking happens, going from door to
yes,
door to door, not here, not
yes.
here, not there, let me out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then
Yeah.
it turns into full on panic where they're shaking the door like, "I gotta go home!" Like, just, like,
Yes.
banging at it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's very hard to witness and to not know what to do.
yeah, so
Yeah.
what I suggest, folks can do, what I've seen works the best, is if you can get them outside, that's probably the best, but if you can't, just really, asking them for their help, their opinion, to join you in any task that doesn't require a ton of brain power. So this could
Yeah.
be collecting stuff off the table and throwing in the trash, like shredding paper. That's pretty mindless, but like all these have in common is that it requires like physical movement, and it has
Mhm.
the purpose behind it.
Right.
And again, you can meet that emotional need of needing to be needed, needing to be valued, that type of stuff. So you could
Mhm.
end that task with the, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much for your opinion," or "Thank you so much for helping me with
Mhm.
this."
Yeah.
Like something like that,
This
where
is
it's just
such a
like,
key
yeah,
important part is that acknowledgement, is the acknowledgement. Because even if they're
yeah.
not, if they act like they're not hearing you on some level, they're getting it.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. You know,
Yeah. I
uh,
used to, just in case for people who are listening, one of the things I like to do is I would say get a basket and get some of those, like washcloths or the shop towels or something, and bring them into like, let's fold these and just fold them and go, thank you, and take it away and mess them up again. Go, oh, we have some more. And it would just like be, it was a task that people could do. And those who really like things uniform could put them in a stack and keep them straight. And it was just, yeah, it's just one of those activities that,
yeah, I mean, the thing that's always really confused me about like dementia activities in general is that they always seem to think because their ability levels have gone down, like that equals kids' activities.
yeah,
And to me, it's just like the thing is, our adult lives are made up of a series of, uh, I would even say like minute tasks, kind of like,
right.
like you're saying, folding the towels, throwing away the
Yes.
trash, tidying up, like things like that. Like these are all what our adult lives are made up of. So the
The
thing is,
laundry needs to be folded and
yeah,
put away. Here's the drawer. Just put it away. Yeah.
yeah, like any of
Yeah.
these things can be broken down into like really bite-sized steps that I'd say at virtually any ability level, like someone could handle. So
Uh-huh.
like that's something I noticed would have like the biggest biggest success. Like I know a lot of folks, I guess the third thing is a lot of them will say, well, my mom or dad refuses to do any activities. That's like a big one I'll get as well. And it's pretty much for that reason. It's just
Yeah.
like, are you, if you're trying to get them to do a crossword puzzle in the afternoon when they're sundowning, good luck with
Yeah.
that. It's like,
Especially maybe they've never liked that. I mean, I've seen
yeah,
that before too, like where everybody's doing puzzles. So everybody needs to do a puzzle. Not everybody likes to do puzzles ever. So,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
I'm a huge fan of like Montessori, and that you have multiple stations based off of people's interests that are
yeah.
more task or job oriented, and or hobby oriented as well. I think
Yeah.
I found that the more hobby like tasks tend to work better in like The mornings, if it's more focus based, or in the evenings, just because if you think about how your adult life is gone, during the day you work, like you
Hmm.
do either tasks around the house or you do work related tasks. And
Yeah.
then in the evening time, that would be, your time to
Hmm.
relax and unwind and things like that. So, uh, and anyways, I would say that's what
Yeah.
I found the most success with.
Yeah. Well, you are such a wealth of information. We're going to have your links in the in the description, of course, on this video. But I know you have something special coming up.
Yeah.
Yes, let's talk about that because I want our audience to know and to really get involved because I think this is just such a wonderful, um, important part of caring for someone with dementia. And we don't go to school for this, right? You
No,
have to
no.
learn. Nobody goes in as an well, hardly anybody goes in as an expert, right? And even experts, I've like had nurses who were caring for their, and they're like, because it's so close to you, it's a whole
Yeah.
different thing. It's really, you have to learn, you have to work on it.
Yeah, I would
So
say there's really nothing like the hands-on experience. Definitely. Like it's interesting because all these healthcare professionals, they may have all these letters behind their name, but that doesn't necessarily mean they've had the ton of hands-on experience. Some of them probably have, and maybe some of them haven't. It
yeah,
really just comes down to asking them, how much one-on-one or like group experience have you had with actual patients? Like I'd say that's a good way to kind of filter
yeah,
through like who's going to give
yeah.
you some actually useful practical tips and who's not.
Yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing. So I want to be
Yeah.
sure people get to hear that and join in because it's coming up
Yes.
soon.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say once or like a couple times a year, I'll host a 7-day challenge experience. So uh, what I've noticed, like the thing caregivers will say all the time is that all the tasks of caregiving are just so overwhelming. Like all the things you could be learning about communication or all the things you could be learning about calming the challenging behaviors down is just, there's just so much.
Yes.
So what happens in the experience is that each day I give you a little bite-sized piece of information on communicating or activities with uh, your loved one or your client that can help calm those behaviors down or prevent them even from happening.
Well, yeah, let's go there, right? That's the
Yeah,
best. Yeah.
yeah, and each day you'd get an action step. So each day, what's really cool is in our little pop-up challenge community, folks are able to share their wins, maybe what some of their roadblocks were,
Yeah.
help each other, and get like
Yeah.
really a ton of practice in a really short period of time.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've
so
I've I've done challenges myself. The word challenge was first enough for me to go, oh, like I have one room for one more thing. However, I've got to say, you know how it is, but getting involved and hearing what other people had to say and their experiences, I just learned so much and I got great additional, even it's like bonus material on top of great material. And what a nice support as well. You're not the only one.
yeah, absolutely.
Others are right there with you. And just like we said, people with dementia, we can't forget. They want to be heard and acknowledged and appreciated. So do caregivers. And
Yeah.
challenges are a great place for that as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, I agree with you. When I say I actually like the word experience better because that's really
Mhm.
more what it is. It's like you're
Yeah.
coming together to the true value actually isn't in what I'm sharing, the information I'm sharing. I'd say really the true value is in them, going home, maybe taking that quick 5 to 10 minute action and then seeing a result with their
Yeah.
loved one or their client and then sharing it with the group and some folks saying, yeah, I tried this and this happened.
Hmm.
Or like it's a really cool experience
Hmm.
that man, I've gotten some awesome feedback on that I'd love to invite your audience members to join in with.
Yes, yes. Okay, so we're going to put in there how to join in. When does it begin, Krista?
Yeah, so we start on May 17th
Okay.
and we end on the 24th. So it's a 7-day experience
Okay.
with a grand finale workshop where there's prizes, there's folks sharing their wins, sharing maybe what some of the roadblocks are, or getting some help with that. So it's really really cool. Yeah, those are the main days. And I guess for those who maybe can't make it on the 24th for the workshop, which I'd say honestly is where you get the greatest value out of the whole experience.
Uh-huh.
We'll have another like encore one on the 26th. So technically that's beyond 7 days, but it's still
So
the same workshop.
yeah, so is it on Facebook? Your group is on Facebook? Is that it?
Yeah. So the experience is going to be all on Facebook. I would say
Okay.
most of it is us coming together on Facebook Live for 5 days. I'd say Saturday you get a day off.
Yeah.
You get a little bit day of rest, and
Uh-huh.
oh my goodness, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just excited.
Me too. Me too. I think it's wonderful. I really think it's wonderful. And so with this, then if people sign up and they're a part of that group, and what if they miss a day? Can they then go back later on that day and watch it if they
Yeah,
missed the
definitely.
live? Okay.
Yeah. What's so neat about Facebook that I love about it is that literally as soon as I'm done going live, it posts basically instantly
It just lives
onto,
there. Yeah.
yeah. So that's really cool. So if you miss it,
Yeah.
you can and if you sign up for it, then I'll know to email you if you missed it, the replay,
Uh-huh.
so that you have access to it. And I give folks about, the full 24 hours between lives to do the action steps. The action steps usually take like 5 to 10 minutes, and they're there just to encourage you to not just spend you know 20 minutes of your time listening to information, but actually going out there and really improving
Yeah.
your life and the life of the person you care for in a really short period of time.
I so love this. So, Krista, your handles, you know what? I didn't ask your handles. It's going to be written above there, just so you know that.
Yeah.
But give us that right now so people can go to your social media and find you there to get started. It's
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So all my platforms are called Dementia Success Path.
There you
That's
go. Who
yeah,
doesn't
that's
love
it.
that, right?
Yeah,
I,
that's
yeah, I think we met each other on Instagram, and
yeah,
we're so many friends from around the country I have met in the last few
yeah.
years, and such wonderful people with fantastic missions, and just big hearts, and out there for family support, which is a big part of what we would like to be sure our families have access to. We know we can be the keepers of great information. We're just not always the ones, the source, right? And so we're delighted to share this with our audience, and we'll have the links below. And is there anything you'd like to say before we close?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that everybody who's watching this is doing as well as you can be. And if today's a hard day, that's okay.
Yeah.
The one thing I really loved about caring for folks with dementia the most was every day is a new day. Even if today
Mhm.
was a difficult day, the only thing that's sure about dementia is that it'll probably change
Yeah. So
over
true.
time.
So
Yeah,
true. And don't give up hope. And
yeah,
where there are people out there who really can help.
yeah.
And yeah, so we're going to help put you in touch with us right there. Krista's one, a great one. Well, thank you, Krista. I loved having you as a guest, and love promoting what you're doing and getting that out there to our audience, as well as everyone you serve out there. It's much appreciated. Yeah. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch up with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Good job.